quote, we're holding our breath and saying a prayer. That's what the governor of South Carolina has said about the recent floods, because even though the rains have stopped, the danger is far from over in South Carolina. 13 dams have already failed, and 62 more are still at risk.
Good grief. Many people have already lost everything in the deadly flooding, and others have gone without food and water. But as Ephraim Graham reports, CBN's Operation Blessing is on the scene to bring the help that's so desperately needed by so many.
Yards lined with furniture, mattresses, and trinkets. A boat sits on its side. A car with doors open dries out. A lifetime of precious memories gone in the blink of an eye.
We are very blessed to be safe and know that our neighbors are safe.
House after house, the devastation is unimaginable.
My parents had a beautiful backyard. It went out about 50 feet of nice grass and then dropped down a pretty steep cliff.
A cliff 12 feet deep, yet the water still reached the roof of his parents' home. Even though the water has receded, the backyard looks like this. They'd only lived here 6 months. Now their home must be demolished. So many stories with similar endings.
What everybody's doing is just emptying everything out of their houses. You know, this is what you're seeing all the way down. And then you're trying to salvage what you can.
Thomas Simmons tries to save what's left of his wife's business.
I feel like Noah, you know, and it was bad. Living in the South, you think, it's never going to happen here. But then when it happens in your own backyard and you don't have any water and you don't have any power, it's like, it's very, very different.
Just days ago, water surrounded the shop, and now this. When asked to give a dollar amount for the loss, Thomas wanted to talk about something more important.
What about our neighbors? How are they going to be affected? How can we help them?
And that was the response of so many.
We're going to go to shelter later this evening because the shelter in Manning needs a lot of help because it could be worse, and God's blessing. So
volunteers and relief organizations are out in droves.
People are coming to a knowledge that God is good, no matter what's happened to them and their families. Yeah, it's been amazing, and it's not over.
And at the very forefront of the relief efforts is CBN's Operation Blessing, with nearly 200 volunteers on the ground working alongside area schools and churches.
Actually, who are helping out right now, Miss Katie, it's really crazy. She's been a partner with CBN for 20 years, and she said she never thought she'd be on the receiving end of it. So she's just going on about what a blessing it is, because she's always wanted to be a part of the efforts, and now it's coming back and helping her out in this awful time.
Today, scores more volunteers will be in the field to lend a hand to those in need, along with 3 additional truckloads of much-needed food and water. And Operation Blessing's mobile kitchen will continue to be on the ground serving lunch and dinner.
And I know that there's a lot of tragedy right now. There's a lot of people being affected, but people are so thankful too.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Well, I'm grateful for one thing, and that is that we can be there to help them. And our prayers are there. A tragedy of unimaginable proportions for that state. It just trillions of gallons of water pouring in and dams breaking, highways flooded and breaking down, people's lives lost. But if we can there to help them, we are. And we are helping in South Carolina. So if you want to participate, it's Operation Blessing Relief Fund or cbn.com, 1-800-759-0700. And we're there, and I like that. Well, in other news, those bakers in Oregon who refuse to bake a cake for the same-sex weddings are speaking out and telling CBN News why they have taken a strong stand in defense of their religious freedom. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. Here's John.
Thanks, Pat. Aaron and Melissa Klein's refusal to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding led to business losses, property liens, and an order to pay $135,000 in damages. And there's a possibility they could face still even more financial claims against them in the future. But as Abigail Robertson reports, the Kleins believe it's important that they take a stand to protect their constitutional right to religious freedom for the sake of others who may face the same fight in the future.
It's been a tough few years for Aaron and Melissa Klein. They've lost their bakery, faced relentless harassment, and now may see their home and wages taken if they do not pay a $135,000 fine for refusing to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. Despite the hardships, the parents of 5 young kids plan to keep fighting.
We feel very strong that, we need to stand strong in this, and we need, if we just hand it over, then we're giving up this fight. We're giving in and we're saying, okay, you win. And we're not standing up for the next person.
That's why the couple won't set a national precedent for future religious liberty cases by just handing over the money. Aaron says that the irony in their case is that the same-sex couple, who were returning customers to the bakery, have publicly said they don't want the money. This is not about the money, and that the only person who wants to see the $135,000 fine change hands is the Oregon Labor Commissioner. Even though the case is under appeal, Aaron and Melissa have been ordered to pay the fine. The state has not yet seized the couple's accounts or enforced any property liens, but that could change any day. Even if that day comes, the Kleins will not give up their fight to protect the religious liberty of all Americans.
I constantly think about the next person in line that this is going to happen to, and if we don't stand up for them, what's going to happen?
We're going to continue to stand firm and fight this, and like Melissa said, we're not going to set precedents by just giving the money and then hoping that we get it back if we win on appeal.
Aaron and Melissa are asking for prayers for their family, their marriage, and most importantly, that God would soften the hearts of all government officials involved in their case and cases like theirs, that they may finally see an end to this ongoing ordeal. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. Pat, this has completely turned their lives upside down.
I'm appalled, and everybody in this audience should be appalled. Who to say that a guy doesn't get a cake he's looking for and he's suffered $135,000 in damages, pain, and suffering? That is utterly nonsense. And who on that Oregon Labor Commission, how left-wing can you have to be to do something like that? It's a total violation of religious freedom. The Constitution, the First Amendment, had to do with protecting religious liberties. That was the major thing about it. It wasn't protecting press. It wasn't even protecting free speech. It was protecting religion. Congress shall pass no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's the First Amendment. Then it goes on there and talks about press and all that other stuff. But it's the First Amendment has to do with religious freedom. And the Kleins absolutely have a right to bake a cake for whoever they want to bake a cake for, and everybody in business. They're going to force you to make axles for somebody's car. They're going to force you to to paint cars pink because people want pink cars. They're going to force you to do this and fine you if you don't do it. That's communism. We're living in a land of freedom, and I appreciate those people taking a stand, but boy, it costs. But let me tell you, the left is going to overreach. They already are overreaching, but I just hope and pray there'll be a shout of outrage throughout this nation of things like that happening. Well, John, what's next?
Pat, here in Washington, the House of Representatives has voted to create a special congressional panel to investigate Planned Parenthood and its practice of selling the body parts of aborted babies. That comes after officials from America's largest abortion provider were caught on undercover videos discussing the sale of aborted baby organs. Republicans say Planned Parenthood's dismembering of babies is barbaric, and they're trying to determine if the abortion giant is breaking laws or misusing taxpayer money. British Prime Minister David Cameron is raising red flags about radical Islam's influence in Great Britain. He's vowing to crack down on extremist schools and institutions that are radicalizing young people there. Those remarks are from a speech he gave after a number of British youth have left the country to join ISIS terrorists in Iraq and Syria. Cameron points out that there are Islamic religious schools called madrasas operating in Britain.
This ideology, this diseased view of the world, it's become an epidemic, infecting minds from the mosques of Mogadishu to the bedrooms of Birmingham. In some madrasas, we've got children being taught that they shouldn't mix with people of other religions, being beaten, swallowing conspiracy theories about Jewish people. These children should be having their minds opened and their horizons broadened, not having their heads filled with poison and their hearts filled with hate.
Cameron said religious schools will now be required to register for inspections, and schools that are teaching intolerance will be shut down. Well, Defense Secretary Ash Carter has made it clear the United States will not cooperate with Russia in Syria. Russia says it's just trying to fight ISIS, but Carter believes Russia is also going after other targets.
I've said before that we believe Russia has the wrong strategy. They continue to hit targets that are not ISIL. We believe this is a fundamental mistake. Despite what the Russians say, we have not agreed to cooperate with Russia so long as they continue to pursue a mistaken strategy and hit these targets.
Even though Russia says it's targeting Islamic State fighters, many critics counter Russia is really just more interested in supporting Syrian dictator Bashar Assad. And Pat, tensions just keep rising in the Middle East.
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing. Today the news was that the Russians are launching cruise missiles from out of the Caspian Sea, and it's coming across land all the way to hit Syria. But what are they shooting? They're shooting pro-Western, pro-American freedom fighters who are opposing Assad. Now, here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. I showed you yesterday about the oil grab, and ultimately that's the prize. The prize is to take control of the oil, and they can then dictate terms, economic terms, to the rest of Europe that will be so onerous that the people won't know what to do about it, and Russia will be in an incredible position economically. But right now, the Assad regime is being supported, or represents the Alawites, a tiny sect of Shia. And those Alawites are in charge of a majority Sunni population. So also in Iran, there are Shias in charge, not Sunnis. Sunnis are being persecuted as well in Iraq. So Russia is taking on the Alawites and taking on the Shias and making an alliance with Iraq and Iran and, of course, now Syria. But what about the rest of the Sunnis? Well, if they have a war between these two factions, Russia will be on the short end of the stick. So in one sense, he may have stepped into a quagmire that he wishes he hadn't gotten into. But on the other, if his game plan, as I said yesterday, has to do with taking over the oil, it doesn't matter where the Sunnis or Shias go. It has to do with the fact, I'm going to control the oil.